With the Bills going up against the Dolphins in week 3, who do you think is going to win this matchup and why?
So I was going over this matchup, right? And I was looking into a little bit more of the details and of course the percentages and statistics as I normally do. And then I just remembered, bro, the Bills have absolutely slapped pretty much every team they've gone up against. And obviously one of those teams being the defending Super Bowl champions in the Rams. Last week, not really worried so much because Tennessee's not that good. But when you go and you look at the Dolphins, this is probably the best offensive team that they've played thus far. And I'm not discrediting what the Rams have, but because of their lack of performance, I think that that was kind of like not necessarily the Rams at their full strength. Like Kyle and I always say, they take a couple of weeks to really get acclimated, get comfortable, really kind of dive and set their feet into what they're going to become as the season progresses. But the Dolphins have shown early, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, Tua Tagovailoa are all on the same page. The dynamic play from their running backs and Chase Edmonds and Raheem Mostert finally getting underneath them is going to be a very compelling matchup for the Bills. But then you also have to look at the Dolphins side and say, the Dolphins haven't exactly beat any good defenses. You know, like I know that the Patriots are pretty solid. I know that the Ravens started off tough, but there were a lot of blown coverages in that second half. The Bills, far and away, are the best defense in football. The Bills, far and away, are the best offense in football. This is going to be a battle of literally Miami's defense and trying to see if they can stop Josh Allen. I don't think that they can. I honestly think that the chemistry between Stephon Diggs and Josh Allen is going to be too much to stop. And of course, at the end of the day, Von Miller is going to be in the backfield a whole lot trying to chase down Tua Tagovailoa. So I think that at the end of the day, as compelling as this matchup is on paper, as tough as this is going to be because it's a division game, I think the Bills win this game by 10 or more points because I think that Josh Allen is at that level already this early in the season. And I think that that Bills defense is going to propose a whole lot of problems. And I think that because of the film that they're going to have studied from the Baltimore game, they're not going to let Tyreek and Jalen get that open in the secondary. I think that they're going to play a lot of contain, a lot of zone. And if Tua's got to be that accurate guy that we know he is, it's going to be a lot of it's going to be a lot of, throws across the flat, check downs, and it's going to be throws in the middle of the field, and he's going to have to make it count. And if those receivers are left hanging with Jalen Waddle and Tyreek being undersized, we all know that those Bills safeties with Poyer and Hyde are going to be hard-hitting plays. So I'm going to go with the Bills, probably by the score of, I don't know, 28-17, maybe even 24-14, something along that manner. But I do think that the Bills come away with this and go 3-0.
Yeah, I agree. I think the Bills are going to come out on top on this one, but I will say that Miami does present Buffalo a pretty interesting challenge here, and it's simply just because in the first 2 weeks, really that week 2 performance by Miami is what I'm kind of using as a crutch here. Miami put up 42 points against the Ravens, which is a pretty decent sized feat despite all the slack that Tua had been getting throughout the offseason and within the first couple weeks, just because of what was supposedly his inability to really get that Miami offense into a dynamic fashion. Well, 42 points on the board kind of counteracts that. And when I look at Buffalo, Buffalo is probably the best team in the NFL. There's really no other way to put it. Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs, you could also throw in Gabriel Davis there as well. It just seems like they're already running and gunning within the first 2 weeks of the year. And I've proposed this idea to Kev just when we are talking just in general, when we're not recording. The Bills offense kind of gives me a 2007 Patriots vibe. And maybe when Peyton Manning went to the Broncos, where the Broncos had Demaryius Thomas, Eric Decker, Julius Thomas, where their offense was just stacked and they were throwing touchdowns left and right. The Bills are at that point just with how impressive they've been, especially last week against the Titans, where they put up 41 points. Granted, the defense got some points on top of that, but that Bills offense could not be stopped by Tennessee. And there's a very real chance that I think that that Miami's defense is going to have a real tough time slowing down the Bills, because the one thing that I take away from last week with the Bills, they didn't have Gabriel Davis. He didn't play last week. And if he is back in the lineup this week, you got to stop him, Stephon Diggs, Dawson Knox, Isaiah McKenzie. There's a lot of options that Josh Allen can throw to on this upcoming matchup. And I don't know if Miami has the requisite pieces to be able to slow them down to the point where Miami can get this win. And also to flip it, when it comes to Miami's offense, Miami's going up probably against the best defense that they've gone up so far, like you said, Kev. And I'm not so sure that Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle are going to be as effective as they were when they played Baltimore, when they had that huge fourth quarter rally where they scored 28 points in that fourth quarter. I do think that Tua and that offense can get points on the board. I just don't think it's enough because I think the one way that Bills defense is going to counteract Tyreek Hill is that they're just going to put their two safeties deep. And if Tyreek Hill catches everything, it's going to be short and intermediate routes. They are not going to let him get behind the safeties and beat them deep. Because we saw that last week against the Ravens defense where Tyreek just burned everybody on, I think it was the game tying touchdown near the end of the fourth quarter. But all things considered, Buffalo to me is far and away the better team in this matchup. They've looked like a much more well-rounded unit than the Dolphins have, just because the Dolphins had a really tough time containing Lamar Jackson last week. There could be a very similar outcome with containing Josh Allen because Josh Allen can extend plays with his feet. And there are many times, we have a lot of examples from last year to be specific, where Josh Allen was the leading rusher for the Bills. And that could actually play itself out once again in this upcoming matchup. At the end of the day, I think the Bills win this one by 2 possessions. If I had to say, I think the Bills put up 31 points against Miami. And I do think that Tua could put up maybe 17 to 20 points when it's all said and done. So if I had to put a score on it, I'm going to say that the Bills win this one by the score of 31 to 20. They would move to 3-0 on the year and would probably cement themselves. They would cement themselves as clearly the best team in the NFL if they're not that already.